My name is Marieke Wiethoff, and I'm a lecturer in Latin American politics at the University of Liverpool. And I welcome all the guests here and viewers to the Culture Unconfined Festival. And the purpose of the festival is to bring cultural activities online. So this is organized by the University of Liverpool, but also in connection to its partners, including LUMA Creations. The purpose of this particular panel is to talk with Latin American artists about their work and how they work across borders and across the limitations of the lockdown. So the purpose of the panel today is to discuss how art is inspired by these international activities, by community engagement. One of the inspirations is that the city of Liverpool has a very long tradition of international, transnational solidarity and connections with Latin America. So we're not limited to Liverpool here, but this is why we are here connecting to you from Liverpool. So what we will look at in the panel is questions of community engagement, communicating the story of what is happening in Latin America through art, including the intersections of human rights and political engagement in Latin America. So I'll briefly introduce the guests here. I think we have a radio interference. I think I hear some sound in the background. So we have 6 guests who you will be able to see on the screen, and I'll briefly introduce them. First of all, Erika Dietes, if I pronounce your name correctly, is based and connecting to us in our hometown of Bogota. And she's a visual artist and communicator. And her work establishes an intimate dialogue between her art and the observer. And her work currently focuses on working with the victims and family members of the war in Colombia. And her exhibition Sudarios, which means veils, that represent the women who have lost a loved one in the war in Colombia. This exhibition was picked to open the cultural calendar in Liverpool in 2019, and this year was dedicated to the celebration and commemoration of International Women's Day. Another guest from Colombia is Bernardo Velasco, who is a musician, scientist, and cultural activist who lived in Liverpool for many years, so that's a great connection. And he was at the center of Latin American music and Latin American community in the northwest of England. And he has performed with some of the greats of Colombian music. And he returned to Colombia in 2019. José Luis is from Venezuela. And he's been one of the UK's leading Latin DJs and music promoters for several decades. And he is founder of Latino Life, which is the UK's Latin culture publication. Lucas, Europe's Latin Entertainment Awards, La Clave Fest, the UK's largest free Latin festival, and Lola MC, London Latin Music Conference. So Oscar Carrasco is from Chile, and he's a singer, songwriter, drummer, and cultural activist. And he came to Liverpool in 1985 and has been involved in lots of community and arts programs. He also created the 800 Drummers event to celebrate 800 years of the city of Liverpool, and he's been performing for many decades. Max Alder is an actor, cultural and community activist, and he has worked in and around the Northwest region for the last 25 years. And he was the director of the World Youth Theatre, inaugural CEO of Zion Arts in Manchester, and senior business manager for arts at the University of Liverpool. And he continues to work and perform in collaboration with LUMA Creations. And finally, last but not least, the initiator of this panel, Francisco Carrasco, also from Chile, and a musician, drummer, writer, and cultural activist. He's the creative director of LUMA Creations, and he has directed many festivals and large-scale music events. And he also has a long connection of solidarity campaigns, including Chile and Nicaragua, and a lot of other activities, including a theater piece called Momentos, on the experiences of Chilean exiles in Liverpool. So thank you very much for joining us. And my first question to you is, how can art help communicate the stories about what's happening in Latin America to global audiences?
Who's speaking first?
Would you like to?
Ladies first.
Or Erika?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay. What I think is that sometimes some part of our history, and I think not only in Latin America, but since we're framing the question directed towards the reality in Latin America, I think we have a very big large number of families that have a family member that has been forced disappear. Murders, we have a history, I'm talking about the Colombian history, of massacres, so many things that are so difficult to even imagine that we allow to happen over and over. I mean, not once, but over a period of 50 something years. So I think art is one resource that can help us come close to that reality, to give it a form. For example, to work to try to honor the disappeared. How do you honor someone that is not present, or that you don't know that for sure that person is dead? How can you sort of create a space to honor that? So basically, that's where art has the power of representation. It has the capacity of going back, create something. In my particular case, I do it very close with the family members of the disappeared. I worked listening to the stories of many families. I have had the opportunity to work with over 400 families. So just, listening to their story and make it something that is visible, that can reach different audiences to bring attention to what had happened. I think we can only do it through art, whatever form of art.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It looks like Marika has frozen.
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
No, she's not frozen. You're not frozen. Are you there, Marika?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to talk, Bernardo?
Okay. I think Erika's ideas are very clear and pretty much cover what I would say. In addition, I think through arts, there is an immediacy that allows us to connect with different peoples very easily, much more easily than, well, especially in music and dance and the performing arts, where language is not a barrier. And so I find that through arts, we manage to connect with different peoples and in a sense prove that we're all very much the same, and try and reduce that horrible gap that we all tend to experience, that when a problem is in a distant location, it's not our problem, it's someone else's. We're all living it now with this virus, and all of a sudden everyone has to pay attention because it's going to hit us all. But if it had just stayed in China, we would have ignored it and forgotten about it by now. So arts allow us to be more present as just simple human beings. And even though we might be in a very remote location that has little incidence on what's happening locally, we're still humans, and we're still living the same kinds of things or feelings that everyone else is. And so through arts, we connect people, and I think we break those barriers of distance and I don't want to use discrimination, but that kind of idea.
Well, in my experience, I would speak more from the promoter point of view. Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples of things I've done in the last 15, 20 years that have communicate these stories of especially violence that's happening in Latin America. We did work with Amnesty International and War on Want at one point, and we in a kind of Latin hip hop festival, and we brought over a couple of groups, a cruise from Cali, Colombia. One was called La Zona Marginal, and the other was called Asilo 38, and which were conscious rap. And in both cases, even though there was a language barrier, because most of the audience was non-Latino, their result was great. That they could communicate the message of brotherhood and solidarity. And that was quite amazing both times. And more recently, we did an event with a Colombian singer called Marta. I can't remember her name exactly. Marta Gomez. Yeah, that was a few years ago, and it was kind of with the help with a group of ladies that were victims of the process in Colombia, of the displacement process in Colombia, and they were quite active here in London for a few years. I was looking for the name of the person who was in charge here. It was called Helga. Can't remember her surname. I'm looking for. That was a while ago. Helga Flamtemersky. And basically, what they were doing were putting those experiences together. Well, we brought Marta, and she gave them a workshop, and part of the workshop was writing some of the painful experiences they've been through, and then transforming them into music. And that was no men were allowed there, so I wasn't present. But the result apparently was quite, impressive. And those are two of the experiences that, I could participate directly and indirectly into, how we communicate these stories to a different audience.
When, in my case, in my experience, I came to this country as a member of a refugee family. And one of the things that the people over here, when they received us, wanted to know was very much about the culture of Chile in all its facets. Our way to do it was within my family, was to do it through music. The thing from that point, because that's my point of entrance into the arts and culture. After that, within my practice, within the communities where I lived in, initially in Leeds, now in Liverpool since '85, and involved my understanding of Latin American society from the point of view of a Chilean, obviously, not a Colombian or a Peruvian or from Chile, and according to the experiences I collected in Chile. And tried to understand how the people that I was in front of, my students, my trainees, whatever you want to call it, and tried to empathize with their personal situations. My work was usually in marginalized places within either Leeds or Liverpool. So it was using the arts to solve certain problems. Namely, kind of early under 15-year-olds pregnancies, introduction into drug trafficking and dealing, and other types of, if you like, not particularly positive activities. And then kind of like we received not so long ago a friend, a refugee from Salvador, running away from a very similar situation, except in El Salvador, it's obviously very violent. It's on top of you, it's in front of you, it's not hidden. Around Kirby, around Knowsley, places around Liverpool, that's exactly what happens, except more silently and less obvious, because there's no obvious battles between two groups armed to the teeth. But there is this exploitation of the child within those two places, becoming exactly the same thing. So within my development of my art, to do with this subject is to try and look at my situation, my experiences of what happened to me in Chile as a 14-year-old, and then put it so the people I was talking to, I was singing to, the children around here, around Liverpool and Britain, something that they could actually identify themselves with. And that art is the most powerful tool I ever met, I've ever kind of seen. And especially those arts that involved teamwork. Isolated things, yes, it's good. But the arts are very good to bring people together, to work together, to get to know each other together. And so to answer the question of how arts can be put is, first of all, for us as artists to learn. I mean, I'm in a situation where I'm in a way lucky, because I've experienced two cultures. I lived them. First the Chilean culture and then the British culture. So I've got a more open mind about things. I've got two perspectives to look at things. Most of you, if not all of you, have got the same perspective or similar. And so it helps us. I think those things help us to try and kind of empathize with the situation of the people we're talking to. Although what we want to do is for them to understand the situation back in our homelands, if you like. I think I don't know what else I can say about that, but that's basically.
We can
Everyone's moving now. It's really good.
I'll go next. I'll probably come up. I'm going to be coming at this from a sligally different angle. I'm not Latin American. I'm not from a Latin American culture. I first moved to Liverpool just under 30 years ago. As you know, I was a trained actor. That was my background. I hadn't worked in community-facing arts at all. And it wasn't much longer after I moved here that I first bumped into Francisco, and it's 1992, and I remember the very first time I met him, he told me about this project he was working on, which he'll be able to give me the name of exactly, but it was the 500th anniversary of Columbus's supposed discovery of the Americas. And he very quickly put me straight on the fact that this wasn't a celebration. It was it was more of a travesty, really, of 500 years of slavery. And that connection I made then, and the subsequent work I've done on and off over the years with Francisco, really informed my own sort of endeavours working within the arts. And I want to echo quite a bit of what Oscar was saying, that for me, the arts is about connecting with people. It's about communicating other people's stories, whilst understanding that they're our stories as well, or there's similarities. For example, working with young black people in Liverpool in the mid-90s from very deprived and marginalized backgrounds, and giving them the voice and the opportunity to talk about their lives and what was important to them, and what was upsetting them, I suppose, or making them unhappy with the world, but giving them a voice. And similarly, again, when I was running Zion Arts, a large arts centre in Manchester, I worked with very dangerous, I suppose you'd say, young men who I was able to persuade that they shouldn't bring guns into the art centre because it was their centre. It wasn't anyone else. It was for them and their friends. And if they wanted to keep those sorts of things and be able to use them in a positive way, they had to take a different approach to how they worked with each other, which they did. They policed, for want of a better word, each other in that area. Understanding that really, if they wanted to be able to move forward and progress in a positive way, they had to make some very sort of clear decisions. But they needed to understand why the similarities of their lives with other people across the world, and the negativity of that sometimes. So for me, it's always been about connecting to difference, but also being able to show people that their situation isn't unique, that lots of people in the world go through this, whatever it might be, and really it's in their hands to make a difference.
Oh, well, it's hard to follow all that. This is, some really interesting context and concepts, and it's easy to just echo what everybody says. I mean, one of the things that, for example, Jose Luis, when he talked about the hip hop crews, because I have worked with hip hop crews from all over the world, really, in different ways, in different contexts, with different hats, and it's not about the hip hop, though that's one, if you want, one type of art form that has crossed boundaries with young people across the world. So, I've worked with the hip hop crews from anywhere, from South Africa, from Palestine, from France, from Cuba, from Chile, from etc., etc., etc. And the power of that is not that it's the art form of the hip hop, but it's the fact that it's an art form that young people from deprived backgrounds, young people from all range of backgrounds, have taken it on board. I've took ownership of that art form, to be able to present and explain and say and talk about their own experiences and how they feel about the world. And I think that's the important. Same with Erica and having those conversations, not just coming up and doing a bit of artwork, but actually having that, developing those relationships, which mean that you allow people to, and you allow yourself to understand, because that's one of the other things. Sometimes, you know, art form often is very subjective, the art, and for me, it's about connecting people at all kinds of different levels. One of the things Oscar and I did in the 90s, 1995, we went to South Africa with a group of 26 artists based in Britain, and we did about 5, 6, can never remember how many months, it was around that time, project in South Africa. It was just after Mandela became president. So he became president at the end of 94, and we arrived in January 95. And we worked in all different kind of situations. By that, we worked with street children, we worked in townships, we worked with university students, we worked in cultural centers, but we also performed in different situations with local and renowned artists, but also with at that time the Royal Philharmonic was there. So it was about the fact that the art and whatever we were doing could be placed at different levels, and it came down to the same thing from our point of view, what we were trying to do, and that connection. That's what Bernardo was talking about, that human connection that brings us all together, and whether it's music, whether it's dance, whether it's visual arts, whether it's something that I've been involved a lot in, whether it's carnival, you know, where it's very much about community engagement, but not community engagement is where you go in and you bring the community together, but you're just part of that, and most of the time you become part of that wave, and you get taken, you're carried through in that way. And for me, that's the power of it. The power of it that it brings people together, like a song can do. You know, in Chile at the moment, there was a song many years ago that Victor Jara, singer-songwriter, Chilean singer-songwriter, wrote about Vietnam. And during the uprisings since October 2019, it became again an anthem, and the artist in Chile rewrote the lyrics to bring it to what was happening at the time, and a simple thing like that can become, you know, the banner that carries you through, because that's what art can do.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. It's really striking how you all talk about how the similarities and commonalities between people in different parts of the world, and Liverpool and the UK has many similarities that can be addressed through the arts. So some really interesting examples here. So another common feature of your work is engagement of the community of groups, the people who are part of your art or your work. So my next question is how do you engage these communities and these groups? And some of you have already given examples, but you're welcome to elaborate a bit if you want. So Erica, would you like to continue?
Has it gone dead?
Yeah, I think she needs to unmute
We
herself.
can't hear you, Erica.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to turn it on. You know what? While you were phrasing the question, I kept thinking that that's one question that gets asked a lot, and I think when they ask you, you know, like how to engage a community, my honest answer would be basically if you start with a community in the same way that you would like to be approached to do the project that you are asking people to contribute to, if you ask and if you treat with the same respect, in my particular case, which is a work that is about grieving and about the terrible and horrific losses that the families in this context have, I think that I approach the families with utmost respect. I always honor the promise that I do to the community, which is in the case of Rio Abajo, that was my first body of work that took me, you know, traveling around Colombia, meeting certain families. They were lending me an object that belonged to the family member that was disappeared. You know, usually the son. It's more common to work with mothers. My promise to the first mother that I met was that I was going to come back and give her back those objects. She said, you know, I'm all by myself. They killed my my 2 sons are missing and my husband. So if you don't come back, it's fine. I already lost everything. Of course, I went back, and the day I went back, the other families were organized and they had brought the objects that I was going to pick up. So basically, you know, the big secret, and I mean, it's basically common sense. If you respect people and you honor their stories and you are very careful, and if you treat it like they are your own, I think basically the communities will open, because people want to tell their story. They want to be honored. They want people to know what happened to them. So I think that's one, basically the reason that I was able to do after Rio Abajo, a project like Sudarios, after Sudarios, a project like Relicarios, where the families actually give me the object that belong to their loved ones. That's because you have built the trust. People see the results of your work. They see how you are transmitting their story, because it's not only, I mean, the work is not, the end of the work is not just opening the exhibition, you know, do the show. It's the catalogs, it's these interviews. People know that one little door might get the message across. Sometimes I have worked with families that basically give me objects so that other people can see the images and maybe give some information about their loved one. So people see all of this as a way of trying to find some justice. And at the end of the day, basically to be honored and to be heard and seen, and not just be one random number. So basically, I think if you treat it with honor and respect, you will be able to work in many communities, even communities that are not yours. I mean, my next project, the idea is to sort of work with testimonies of different countries, but it's because of the result and what people see the work is doing, and it's sort of, I mean, as long as you honor the story, you will be able to tell more stories. And I think that's basically our job.
Okay, thanks very much. Bernardo, would you like to follow up?
Okay, well, as you mentioned at the beginning, my life is split between 2 professions. So I spent a lot of my time on a more of an engineering capacity around the globe, working with people from many countries, but at a technical level. With the music, I'm far more modest, and I don't like to impose on anyone, nor have I done much work directly involved with communities. We have done some of that in Liverpool and here in Colombia on discrete occasions. So in general, I think my purpose as an artist and in connection to all this is raise awareness a little bit and try and solidify that connection, to feel that, you know, we're not aliens, we're feeling the same things. And I think the biggest gain for me in all these interactions with other musicians in particular is to find that common theme that we've covered today, that there is just an incredible connection that happens automatically when you're dealing in the arts. It's much easier to feel connected with someone and feel involved, and that gives a sense of identity that's invaluable. And as Erica was saying, that sense of respect, to feel that you're valued, that you're appreciated, and you're not being ignored. And so in producing art, you're not just trying to draw attention to yourself, you're trying to draw attention to others and to strengthen those connections. That's me.
So that creates a community in a sense. Thanks, Jose Luis.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. How do you use that to engage with your community? Well, most of my work is unrelated, even though I don't consider myself any type of artist. Even when I do perform on a regular basis, I don't consider myself an artist. Again, from the promoter point of view, we use a very direct approach with the community. For us is, you know, that part of my life is just trying to enable my community to be more recognized, and we do it through art, because I think art is what I like. Music is what I love, and also is the easiest way to pass on culture from one person to another. For example, even kids who cannot speak the language, Latino kids who cannot speak the language, start picking up words when they sometimes just because of the music. And again, for me, it's always a direct approach, trying to give them the tools to expose that art to a broader audience, specifically the British audience, through whatever the festival or the parties or the magazine. We really engage with them, and it's really nice to see how people react to, for example, a couple of days ago, an artist who's a quarter Brazilian, a quarter from Suriname, a quarter from French Guiana, and a quarter English. And you know, he found us on, it's quite a big artist in South London. He found our website, our social media, and started interacting with us, saying, you know, it's fantastic, you know, to belong to a community. He feels I never belonged to. He told me his whole story in a couple of posts. He never felt anywhere, never felt good anywhere apart from when he's with other Latinos. And he, you know, he's a singer, songwriter, and a rapper. And for us, it's always, you know, the engagement is our communication, giving people that platform. You know, that's all personally we can do. We have certain resources, and those resources are available for the broader community, Latino community, or not just Latino people who wants to, who somehow is linked to Latin America, and that's how we do it in our platform.
Okay, Oscar, if you can unmute yourself.
Whoops. Sorry, I'm not very technically able with this computer thing, technical stuff, and I just pressed the wrong button before. The question is extremely difficult to answer, to be honest, because it depends on the what you find yourself in. I mean, there's different ways or different scenes, if you like, different theaters. There's a school setting. You come in as an outside teacher at the beginning. In other ways, you try to become a part of the community. But as Erika was saying at the beginning, it's the base. The first one is respect. You respect the person you've got in front of you, the people you've got in front of you. You respect them. They just got the same feelings that you have, the same emotions. So therefore, you've got to respect that. So most of the time, it's played by ear. Like in music, you play it by ear. Kind of see what you've got in front. Even in different schools, you get different dynamics and kind of things. So which is something I found the artist to hold a very, very important skill, which is empathy. As an artist, you can always empathize with the person you got in front of you. Somehow, I don't know how that happens, but through the activity of doing your art, you become more empathic to other people's emotions and states of being. So I think it's taking those things into account and just become one of them. You're one of them anyway. You just got a skill that they might not possess, but they probably got many skills that you don't possess. So to make yourself put in that pedestal, unfortunately, in the education system that we live under, that's the hierarchical structure of a school, university, whatever. It's got the person in the pedestal that knows more than anybody else. And then you've got the people who are recipient to that knowledge. And it's not the person in front that is responsibility to learn, but it's for you to learn. So it's not my fault if I'm giving you a lesson and you don't understand. My point of view is that if somebody don't understand, it's my fault. It's not their fault. I haven't been able to explain myself. So that's the kind of attitude I find most artists have got when they go in front of these sort of situations. If you don't understand me, it's my fault. I haven't explained myself. Full stop. Don't blame the others. And I find myself in those positions where there are other people around who do not take that properly. And they basically usually not musicians or artists. They kind of got other type of professions, unfortunately. I mean, but that's the case. And that's basically my answer, really, is respect and take each instant as it comes, because you can't plan for it. You don't know what backgrounds those other people have got, what they're thinking about at that instant. Your job is to try and get those things and put them aside and try to involve themselves in the moment that we are in. So succeeding in all those things is how I think the more technical side of involving communities. And there are different methods. Luis just put one way, Erika put another way. And I don't know, it's just making yourself one of them, to be honest. You are part of them, and full stop. You're just parting with some of your knowledge that you've got, and you want to get knowledge from them on what they know, full stop. Okay, that's my answer.
That's okay. Yeah, great. And I think it sounds like Max could follow up quite nicely from there.
Well, yeah, certainly for me, it's about to engage with communities. You have empathy is yeah. There has to be honesty, there has to be trust, and there has to be truth. And for me, one of the sort of strongest tools I've had to do that, to engage communities, has been through drama and theatre. And I'll give you a very quick example. Several years ago, when I worked at the Rural Youth Theatre, which was part of the youth service, it was brought to our attention that there was an issue between these two big housing estates that were right by each other, but were divided by a motorway. And the issue was that every year in the summer, at least once, possibly twice or more, both sets of youths from each housing estate would meet up for a massed pitched battle, a fight, basically. And this had been passed on for generation to generation to generation. And, you know, it was sort of 12 to 25-year-old, usually young men, but often young women. So what we did as a theatre company, we went into various groups. We went out onto the street and we spoke to young people. We told them what we were doing. We were totally honest with them. We got their stories from them as to why this happened and how they felt about it. And then we produced a piece of theatre for them, which we then showed them. It was quite participatory. There were workshops connected with it. And pretty much all of those young people felt that we'd been honest with them and their story, and told their story truthfully and honestly. And as a result, for the first time, I think in I don't know how many years, the fighting actually stopped, because the groups of young people that we deliberately made them come at the same time. And you know, this was groups of young people from all over the Wirral as well, not just these two areas, because it's a bit of an issue. It was a bit of an issue across the entire borough. And literally within a few months, it stopped. And I don't know if it started again, because it was quite a long time ago, but it had an immediate impact. And they all said it was because they'd really seen somebody showing their lives and how they felt about the world. So yeah, it's, for me, to engage with communities, you've got to be able to show that you're prepared to listen, but you're also going to tell the truth. You're going to tell their story.
Erica, if you would like to join or respond to that, have you?
Yes, I just had a quick note about what we were talking about. Like Oscar was saying that most of the artists have the capacity to be empathic. I think it's something that not to make it, not to idealize and to sort of romanticize the idea, but I think if we need to work as artists, and I think this should be sort of more something, a subject that needs to be taught in art school as well, and maybe needs to be sort of reworked a little bit, is to actually have that capacity of feeling empathetic. And I think I really like how you describe it, that you play it by ear. It's sort of resolve a way of, in one word, what I always try to say, and it's sort of, you need to listen to the community that you're working with. I think working in your capacity of being empathetic with the community is most important than the artwork itself. Because I think sometimes, and it's not true that all the artists have the capacity to be empathetic. I think you have to go sort of with, first of all, open heart. You have to be able to go, maybe you have an idea, but that idea does not make sense with the community that you are working with. So you have to be able to play it by ear. You have to be able to not go and just take what you need for your work and, you know, just take out of the community and not work with the community. I think the most beautiful things that I have learned from someone from the community, the biggest and the most accurate art critics that I have had are from the communities, usually the mothers of the disappeared that I have worked with. If my work makes sense, and if that woman feels that I was able to honor her feelings and to respect what she was saying to me, I think that's the best art criticism that you can get. So you have to also be able to just leave your idea behind, although you are creating something that looks like your thoughts, what you imagine, because you also imagine from the capacity that you have physically to create. If it's music, if it's dance, if it's, you know, whatever. I cannot imagine a song because I have no capacity, no musical capacity. So I imagine, you know, the shrouds in the temples. I imagine, when I work with a community, I try to explain, you know, the ideas I have, but the most important part of my work have come by listening to the community. And that usually means that you have to be generous from your heart. And I think working and this would be something that I would definitely suggest to art school, is to teach students that art itself, it's not what's important here. What's important here is to sort of be able to feel and to play it by ear. I really like that. That's it.
Yeah, it's a very particular phrase that I only learned when I moved to the UK myself. So,
yeah, I mean, so many different situations of potential. I mean, one of the things I haven't done this year, but I do. I've been doing it for quite a number of years. Is delivering a module at university called Developing Professional Practice. And it's for artists, and it's primarily for performing artists. So it's musicians, dancers, actors, theatre practitioners, etc. And it's quite an interesting thing because although a lot of it is to do with, a lot of the thing that I'm supposed to do is to do with discussing how you become a freelance artist, how do you earn a living from, you know, how can you do that as a career? I kind of take that that Oscar was talking about and that Erica developed a little bit more, and I actually run with that quite a bit through, because the module lasts the whole year. It's for the third year students, for the final year students, and I run with that concept quite a lot about the fact that there are different scenarios for an artist. Sometimes an artist has to be very selfish to create a piece of work that is their piece of work, because we know that many artists are very are perfectionists, and they're never happy with the end product of their own art. You know, for example, Oscar and Bernardo, they've worked together for years and they've created some amazing songs, but they're never happy with the recordings, so they never put them out. They always go, oh no, it doesn't work. But that's one side of it. So when you're producing your own art, you're very critical and very, you know, and that's one thing, and that's fine. So it's almost like you need to box things. And then as an artist working in a community context, or working in a cultural context, working with another scenario, you literally have to put that and live it in the house, because it's not about you. It's not about your art. It's about something else. And it's that Oscar was talking about, and Max, and what Erica was talking about, you know, actually understanding the difference and the context in which you're doing that art. So I do a lot of that with the groups of students, about that concept of empathy, that concept of you know, you can't just go in there with a perceived, this is what we're going to do. And because many do at the beginning, many young artists are very excited, and they really want to have a go, and they really want to work with people, and they really want to do that kind of thing. And they kind of drag people, and sometimes you don't listen. And the point is that, for me, the best work I've ever done has been when I've stood back and just helped and facilitated something to happen where my skills are required. But sometimes your best skills is to just observe and allow something to happen within a community context. And that is as true with a community that you go into in a situation where there's violence or whatever, there's an issue that you're trying to work with, or whether it's about getting people to feel that they are worthy and what they do deserves a voice, or what they do deserves recognition. I mean, it's one of the things that Jose Luis was talking about, which is very, very important for me, is being recognized. We did a project with LUMA Creations a while back with a group of young Latin Americans. And the project was based about the fact that in every equal opportunities form in the UK, there was no such thing as a Latino. You could be everything, but all you ever were was any other. Now, me as a 56-year-old guy, I'm like, whatever. But for young people, for teenagers, that's a big thing. Not having an identity, not being recognized. It's a big thing. So work in those scenarios, that happens, that kind of recognition, that voice, can be Latinos in this situation, but it can be a group, like Oscar was talking, a group in Kirby, or a group wherever, or a group in Bogota, or a group in Caracas, or a group in Santiago, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The thing is that kind of context of that voice. And I think for me, one of the most important things, and it brings everything together that they were talking about, is it's about enabling those communities to have that voice and to have that voice recognized.
Okay, thank you very much, Francisco. As we are drawing towards the end of this conversation, I just want to say to the people who will be viewing this video that there will be performances, recorded performances, and the exhibition items available on the website to view. So in light of that, I wanted to ask each of you to very briefly, maybe 1 or 2 sentences to summarize what is for you the main message that you hope audiences or people who listen to your music or watch your exhibition, they pick up from your work. And I'll start with Jose Luis.
Can't hear you.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Could you summarize in 1 or 2 sentences what do you hope your audiences pick up from your work?
Well, I do hope that people see that, hard work pays off. I think it's very important for me, the work ethics I'm trying to show to younger people. That's very important in the work I do. There is no such things as a free meal. You need to work hard, and things will come back to you. That's one message I would like people to get from what I do. And the second thing is that you need to be open to other cultures. The same way, we Latinos are quite open to a lot of cultures, because being Latino means being multicultural in itself. I think, from my point of view, I can only speak for myself. The work that we do is trying to integrate our culture to the broader British audience, and the same way that we receive them when they come to our parties, to our events, to our celebrations. It'd be nice if we were received the same way when other people are doing it. Those are the two things I would like people to pick up from my work.
And Erica.
Basically, and this is going to be very short, I promise. Basically, is that we need to honor the dead to be able to respect life. And that's basically what I do with my work.
Thank you. And Bernardo.
Yes, we're publishing an album before the end of this month, which is titled "Don't Shoot So Many Bullets." We want to obviously raise awareness. We want to raise the idea we've been discussing, not just as artists, but as regular human beings. We have to learn to respect each other, and that's the most powerful weapon we have to achieve everything, basically. So that's us. Just raise awareness and spread love.
Oscar, you can unmute yourself. Yes.
Very short. I'd like people to take from what we do, what I do, and my fellow workers or the people that work with me. Just take a couple of things. We're all one family. Let's unite. That's it. That's my answer.
Perfect. Max?
I suppose I'd like people to take away a greater understanding or agreement to how the arts is so important. Whatever arts, it's such an important tool for us to talk to each other, but also to be able to listen to each other as well.
Oh, thank you, Francisco. Yeah, your microphone.
This is probably the hardest question. In 2 sentences. I could do it in 2 sentences, but I need about a week to work them out. But I think most important thing for people to take away is that they have a voice. And the second most important, learn to use that voice so that we can come together. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I have also, other than the kind of items on the website for Culture Unconfined, I understand that LUMA Creations will also have a Latin American festival that's usually, of course, in person, but this year going to be online. And it will feature interviews of the people here participating in this panel. So it's going to be a very exciting follow-up. And I'll just share with you the website where you can find more information about what is happening here at the bottom. And I don't know, Francisco, if you would like to say a couple of words about it, you're welcome.
Yes, well, this will happen in August. Basically, it's 2 days online event, and the idea is, part of the idea is to come together as in different ways, and what we're aiming to do is interview a number of artists and producers, etc., about their work, about what they're about as an artist. So it's about their trajectory and how they're dealing with the issues of coronavirus at the moment and the future. How they see what they will be able to look at. That's the kind of interviews. And then we have some commissions, small commissions for which are about supporting artists which we have worked with who are in Latin American artists in the UK who are going through a lot of problems because of what's going on at the moment, because of the lack of work, and looking at them producing something, and a number of other things. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing.
Okay. Well, I think that's great. Thank you very much for all your very inspiring answers, and I hope everybody who watches both the panel videos and recordings and sees the exhibition will be just as excited as I am. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Thank you.